Yes, okay. Shall we start? Right. Good evening. Now, yes, looking at your reactions, I can understand what has happened today. It's okay. This this paper is always like that, and next paper should give you the motivation, because the next paper definitely every one of you can score exemption. Okay, so that is how the paper will be. So with this, I'll start with this session, refresh to relax on economic laws. This is one of the electives that we have, and it is the open book exam, correct? So what we have to do is we have to stay positive. We have to work hard and make it happen. That's all. That is what we have to do. Yes, it might not go well, but do we have an option? No. Right. So what are the important points? Most of the points we have already discussed in paper 4 when we had discussed, but some specific points related to economic laws subject, right? This particular paper, it's an open book exam, 4 hours paper, timing, right? Till now we had 3 hours. This is 4 hours paper. Yes, we have open book exam. It is for 4 hours, but still don't be complacent, right? That 4 hours might also not be sufficient if we are complacent. It's not that I can keep on searching the provisions in the book, right? It's not possible. But normally the paper will be easy. It will be pretty straightforward. So try maximizing the marks. I'm not specifically talking about 8 subjects put together in aggregate or groups marks in aggregate. I'm specifically talking about economic laws. Whatever the other 7 subjects performance, forget it. Consider economic laws as a single subject, score exemption in that. Irrespective of the others, you have exemption in one subject, right? So that is how we have to approach economic laws. And why it is easy to score? Yes, we have case study based questions, the question paper, right? In that case studies, every case study is has MCQs, right? Every case study has MCQs. Totally, there are 20 MCQ questions that will be there of 2 marks. So totally 40 marks MCQs out of 100. 40 marks MCQs. And yes, every MCQs are of 2 marks. That doesn't mean that there will be too tricky. I'm not saying that there will be very easy, but with the application of knowledge that we have, and with the help of the material that we'll be taking and reading the case study, definitely we can get. Okay, out of 40, definitely we can score 30 marks there itself. So that is how we have to do. And read the questions carefully. I'm not talking about the case study, the questions, the requirement, right? Read the questions carefully, and obviously filling the OMR correctly. Fill in the OMR correctly. Again, don't skip any MCQs. No negative marking here also. Don't skip any MCQs. Time management is very important. We have 4 case studies to answer, right? 4 hours. So plan accordingly. Time management is very important. So for that, what we have to do, we should not read the entire case study at first. Okay, it definitely takes our time, because some of the case studies might run into pages, 2 pages, 2.5 pages. So there is no point in reading such case studies. Instead, don't go to the questions also directly. Glance through the case studies. Just read it in the sense skip and read. So that you will get to know the essence of that case study. What are the laws that are covered in that case study, right? So that is what is required. Then go to the question, read the questions, read the requirement. With that, since you have glanced, you will be knowing where the answer will be, or where the related facts of the case would be, so that you can come back and read that relevant fact in detail of the in that case study. Okay, so do not read the entire case study fully at first. Just a glance for the hint, then read the question, come back to the case study, apply and get the answer. If you feel you're not able to identify the provisions of you can check for the hint given in the question. Normally every case study will have 2 chapters covered or 2 laws covered. Okay, 2 chapters covered. So based on that coverage, you can identify the hint. And it doesn't mean that only 2 chapters should be asked in a particular case study. In some cases, 3 chapters have also been asked. Okay, so checking for hint, you should not mislead yourselves. Then format of answering, we all know this is specifically for descriptive answers. So format of answering, the structure of the answers that we have, provisions of the law, then facts of the case, analysis, and final answer. Again, don't quote wrong sections. Here we have no option to quote wrong sections. We have the material, right? So preferably or compulsorily write the sections. Okay, compulsorily write the sections and even the rules. Here, the main focus in paper 4, the difference between paper 4 and paper 6D is those rules and regulations. We have additional rules. The concept remains the same. The concept of corporate insolvency resolution process remains the same. It is that additional rules and regulations that changes. The concept of FEMA remains the same. It is that additional regulations that gets included makes the difference, correct? So there, those rules and regulations also preferably quote the rule number, sub-rule number also. Okay, so that definitely makes difference. And obviously charts, tables, etc. can be used. Focus on writing qualitative answers instead of quantitative. Then frame the answers in your mind before writing. These are the points that we have already discussed in paper 4 also, right? We should not directly jump into answering the paper. We'll have to frame the answers in our mind. And simple language, but appropriate words. Here, if possible, you can bring in the same provisions also as it is, since we have the material in place. And legible handwriting, correct question numbers, the basics that we have to keep in mind at the end of the day. And don't stop writing until 6 p.m. We should definitely not stop. First R is again very crucial. Go with that case study which is comfortable, which you are comfortable with, specifically from descriptive answers point of view. MCQs obviously will answer all the case studies, but descriptive answer point of view, which is that particular case study which makes you comfortable. For that, you need not read case study. You have to just go through the questions. If you go through the questions itself, you know what is the requirement, what are they asking about, which is the law that they're talking about. So where you are comfortable, start with that itself. Start with that case study itself. First R is very crucial. Take all stationaries, including calculator. See, first R is very crucial. Yes, what you can also do, if the descriptive, if all the case studies descriptive are not comfortable with, too comfortable with, in that case, what you can do is you can start with MCQs of all case studies. You have to identify 4 case studies out of 5. You have to identify 4 out of 5. So first answer all the MCQs. That again, it might be a little difficult because it is case study based. You have to read the case studies to answer. Just in case, I'm telling, if nothing works out, if you answer those 20 MCQs, you'll 40 marks. You will be confident of 30 marks, then it might help you to answer the descriptive, just in case as a plan B. Okay, just in case as a plan B, you can do that. And what is the material that you have to take? It is not that you are taking everything which is there in your house, right? So take the same material that you have used for preparation. Don't take a new hard, newly bought out material. No, where do you search the provisions there? You have not gone through the material at all, right? So which is the material? It need not be the study material of ICAI also. Any material that you have referred to, take that material itself. And minimum material, maximum marks. So the minimum material you take, the better for you, because there you'll not have time to check multiple materials and write. Okay, so preferably study material of ICAI and the material that you have referred. It might be CAPS material also. So take the same material that you have used for preparation. Clear?
So you mean that plan B which your mother talking about? So first 4 questions, all the MCQs together, and then for then those 4 questions descriptive. That like
see,
that is
MCQs normally will be in OMR. See, OMR will be part of the first sheet of your answer paper, right?
Yes. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Now, coming to this subject, we have 7 chapters. Competition Act 2002, Real Estate Regulation and Development Act RERA 2016, IBC Insolvency Bankruptcy Code 2016, PMLA 2002, for FEMA 1999, Prohibition of Benami Property Transactions Act 1988, and the new one which was applicable from May 22, SARFASI, Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Security Interest Act 2002 rather. So the advantage here is that, we all know the basic concepts of these 3 chapters. We have already learned this in paper 4. Correct. So we have already, since we have already learned these three in paper 4, these chapters related questions we should never skip. That particular case study we should never skip in exam. Apart from that, we have to look into the other chapters accordingly. The only thing that changes in these three chapters is the additional rules, regulations, and examples that have been included in the economic law specific study material. Okay, apart from that, the basic concepts remain the same. We have already learned of it. So that is how we have to plan. That is how we have to approach. So what are there just for our revision, so that it will help us to revise in the next few hours. First chapter is the Competition Act, their introduction, definition, some of the important definitions of agreement, what is cartel, consumer, and relevant market. Then we have anti-competitive agreements. It could be horizontal or vertical. Detailed discussions there with regard to that. Bid rigging, various provisions with regard to bid rigging, examples there. Then abuse of dominant position concept of combination, very important. Combination, categories of combination. We have acquisition and mergers and amalgamation, two different categories. Regulation of combination. For that, Competition Commission of India, right? In Competition Commission of India, duties, powers, and functions of CCI, duties of Director General, then penalties. Advantage here is we need not by heart penalties, correct? But penalties are important. Penalties, competition advocacy, and finance accounts and audit. These are some miscellaneous provisions. Since it is open book, they can still ask this. That is the reason. Go through, know where that provision is. You need not, in the sense, go through in detail. Just you have to be ensured that where the provision is, so that it will be easy for you to refer and answer, and appellate tribunal. Then you have RERA, Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 2016. Here, features of RERA, scope of RERA, benefit of RERA for allottees, and definitions. We have advertisement, agreement for sale, allottee, apartment, carpet area, commencement certificate, common area, completion certificate, occupancy certificate, definition of promoter, not the normal definition under Companies Act, separate definition. Then real estate agent. These definitions might be important. And registration of real estate project, that provision. And registration of real estate agents are also important. Functions, duties, and obligations of promoter. Real estate regulatory authority. Central advisory council. And you have offenses, penalties, and adjudication in that also. Finance, accounts, audit, and report, miscellaneous requirements. That is the second chapter. Now, IBC. So what is there in IBC under economic laws? Whatever we have learned in chapter paper 4, right? Paper 4 plus case laws and regulations have been added. Lots of case laws are also have been added, which are important here, which we have not learned in paper 4, case laws and regulations also. Some additional regulations have been added. So those regulations might also be important. So what are there here? Introduction, applicability of IBC, we already know. Definitions, definition of claim, definition of corporate debtor, default, corporate applicant, financial creditor, and operational creditor. Corporate insolvency resolution process, we know the process, but that process has been detailed here, right? With regulations, the process has been detailed with regulations. Most of this chapter revolves around this CIRP process itself with lots of regulations. Then you have liquidation process again with some regulations, additional regulations which have been included. PPIRP, we have already learned. Fast track CIRP also we have already learned. Then voluntary liquidation process, the process which we have to look into. Lastly, adjudicating authority, tribunal, NCLT, and DRT, the different adjudicating authorities that we have. Offenses and penalties. Regulation of insolvency professionals, agencies, and information utility. Who will regulate? IBPI. And insolvency professional agencies will regulate insolvency professionals. That particular concept. That's all. That is what is there in under IBC as well. Then we have PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, PMLA 2002. This as well is same as paper 4. Whatever we have learnt in paper 4, plus extra examples are there. Very important. Those examples, straightforward. They can pick up those examples and make case studies. Okay, so please go through those examples in the next 1.5 days. Every example in the study material, irrespective of any chapter, every examples and case laws go through. Okay, concepts anyhow we will know, right? So examples and rules have been added in PMLA. So what all we should learn here? Definition of money laundering, proceeds of crime, property, and scheduled offense. We have already learned this. Offense of cross-border implication. Then offense of money laundering, what is the punishment? Attachment related provisions, adjudicated related provisions, and confiscation of the property related provisions. Then we have obligation of banking companies. Again, with suspicious report, cash transaction report that we have learned in paper 4, financial institutions and intermediaries. Maintenance of record rules is there, a detailed rule, maintenance of records rules, which was not there in paper 4. Then we have summons, search and seizure, appellate tribunal, special court, reciprocal arrangement, that is with regard to cross-border implication with agreement with different countries, other penalties that are included apart from money laundering punishment, then continuation of proceedings in the case of death or insolvency. Very important provision this is. It's there in the last part of the chapter. Okay, but questions have been asked from this also recently. Then FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act, again same as paper 4, but extra examples are there, regulations are there, extra regulations have been included. What all we have to look into: definition of capital and current account transactions, person resident in India, repatriate to India definitions, residential status, important. Definitely one question will be there on the residential status, and regulation and management of foreign exchange, list in current account transactions, list under capital account transactions, acquisition of immovable property, those regulations, immovable property acquisition in India, outside India, in India by a non-resident NRI, outside India by a person resident in India, those two separate regulations. ECB related, same, whatever we have learned in paper 4, same thing is there in paper 6D with regard to ECBs, those tables, different concepts in tables that we had. Then overseas direct investment, some additional regulations are there apart from what we have learned. Export regulation in detail. In paper 4, it was a condensed one. Here in detail, it is there, export regulation. Then you have realization, repatriation, and surrender of foreign exchange, penalties, compounding of offenses, adjudication and appeal related provisions, enforcement directorate. There is a separate discussion with regard to enforcement directorate. So just look into that. And contravention by companies. If contravention is done by company, who will be charged? Normally, persons in charge, managing director, whole-time director, will be charged by default unless they prove otherwise. Other directors will be charged only if they can prove the guilt. Yes, only they have proved that they are guilty. Right? So these are the 3 chapters which we have already learned. Then next one, Prohibition of Benami Property Transaction Act 1988. It's a simple chapter. We have to focus on these specific topics: definition of Benami property, definition of Benami transaction, who is a Benami dar, who is a beneficial owner, and fair market value. With regard to fair market value, there are many discussions in the definition itself. Along with the definitions, they have discussed many concepts, examples, etc. Go through that. Then definition of property. Then Benami transactions are prohibited. That prohibition of Benami transaction. What are the authorities that are involved in Benami Transaction Act? What are the actions can be taken? Attachment, adjudication, confiscation of the property. Then you have appellate tribunal. See, the process here under Benami property are similar to PMLA. The actions that can be taken, right? Confiscation of the property, etc. Then appellate tribunal. Then you have special court, offenses and prosecution. These are the concepts that are involved. Then we have the last chapter, SARFAESI, Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Security Interest Act 2002. This was been asked from May 2022, the previous exam. It was introduced only from previous exam, and they have asked questions in the previous exam as well. So in this SARFAESI, yes, the main concepts we have to learn, but focus on case laws. Lots of case laws have been part of the material. So focus on case laws there. What all we have to focus on: definition of asset reconstruction company, definition of debt, definition of financial assistance, definition of NPA, non-performing assets, qualified buyer, securitization, secured creditor, and security interest. So basically, what are they trying to tell here? It's a older provision of IBC. So we have to connect it with IBC. They're enforcing security. Secured loan has been taken. In case of default, how do I enforce the security? That has been discussed here, right? And for that, the securitization, security receipts, etc., can be issued for financial assets. So that is the provision of this chapter. So what all we have to learn here: regulation of securitization and reconstruction of financial assets of banks and financial institutions. How are they regulated? The process of securitization and reconstruction. Then how enforcement of security interest happens. These two are separate discussions. One, securitization and reconstruction of financial asset, separate discussion. Then enforcement of security interest. Enforcement of security interest comes into picture only in case of default. Then we have central registry who will have the details of default, something like information utility under IBC. Then registration by secured creditors and other creditors, they have to register. And obviously the last one, offenses and penalties. So these are the provisions that we have. So that is how we have to connect. We can connect IBC and SARFAESI. We can connect PML. We can connect PMLA and Benami property. We can connect FEMA with the other Benami property. Again, Benami, PMLA and FEMA can be connected. Then these two, competition and RERA, normally are separate in isolation. They normally cannot be connected. Right? That is how we can have. Now, just to have an understanding, normally they have equal distribution of marks between all the chapters. Okay, this is how it has been asked in the previous two exams. May 2022, 5 case studies, of which 4 we have to write. Case study 1, FEMA was for 11 marks, SARFAESI was for 14 marks. Case study 2, IBC 10 marks, Competition Act 15 marks. So IBC and competition have been connected. FEMA and SARFAESI have been connected. Case study 3, Benami Act 13 marks, FEMA 12 marks. Case study 4, RERA 9 marks, PMLA 16 marks. Case study 5, RERA 12 marks and IBC 13 marks. This was May 2022. Then we had December 2021. Case study 1, IBC 13 marks, PMLA 12 marks. Case study 2, FEMA 12 marks, RERA 13 marks. Case study 3, FEMA 10 marks, competition 15 marks. And 4, Benami Act 17, PMLA 8, RERA 11 and IBC 14. So if you look into this, Competition Act, only one was case study, limited for 15 marks. Right? Whereas SARFAESI also, that has been asked only in one case study for 14 marks. Whereas FEMA has been repeated. FEMA has been repeated, 22 IBC. Here, 23 here. Right, IBC has also been repeated, 23 here and 14 plus 13, 27 here. Then Benami Act, only one, 13 marks. Here also it's 17 marks, only one. Then RERA, here it has been repeated, 21. Here also it has been repeated, 24. So normally IBC, FEMA and RERA, multiple questions. PML also, yes, 20 marks, 16 plus, okay, here there is only one, 16. So normally RERA and IBC and FEMA have their repeated questions and more than 20 marks weightage. PMLA reasonably 16 to 20 marks. The other 3 chapters around 15 marks. Around 15 marks. So that is how we have to analyze and we can approach our preparations as well. And that is good because FEMA and IBC we already know, right? So that is easy for us to approach. And what all we should have, what all we should know. Conceptual clarity. Yes, even though it's an open book exam, we should have the conceptual clarity. It is not that I'll just go, I'll just walk into the examination hall with all the materials in hand and write the exam. No, not possible. So you should have the conceptual clarity. Conceptual clarity is must. The only advantage of open book exam is we need not by heart. Right? We need not by heart. And we can refer the material and give a better presentation. That's the only advantage here. Conceptual clarity is must. And solve some case studies for familiarity. So what we can do is, since these are not case studies in isolation, preferably by tomorrow evening, by tomorrow end of the day, focus on all the concepts of all 7 chapters. So that the day of the exam, the day after, you can solve many case studies so that you're comfortable with the case study based approach. Right? You'll be comfortable in answering the case studies. So you can do that. You have a case study material, case study digest released by ICI. There are 54 case studies there. So you can look into those how much ever possible. You definitely cannot look into all. And compulsorily in ICI website, you have corrigendum to case study material. There are lots of changes happened. Okay, so some chapters. So please go through that particular changes. If possible, take a printout of that and carry it to the examination hall also. That will definitely help. Some time limits have been changed in some of the laws, so those are important. So please look into that. And the case study digest book, 54 case studies you can look into. Apart from that, you have subject-wise capsules in ICAI, right? So as a revision kind of a thing. There in economic laws, they have case studies. They have case studies. So campus case studies. So you can refer those case studies as well. This is how we have to look into, and obviously we'll have to have the positive attitude, positive mindset. You have to have that confidence in this subject. Definitely it is possible. Okay, there should not be any doubt. The minimum marks that can score is 60. So anything over and above 60 is what you have to aim at. So that is how we have to approach this. And there is obviously you will not get an opportunity to panic in this exam, but even if in case you want to, don't panic. And for preparation also, no specific timetable. Which chapter is comfortable to you, go through that chapter in that order itself, right? So that it will be easy. So obviously you have drained out today. You might not be able to look into some new topics, new concepts today. Whatever you have learned already in paper 4, you can go with IBC or FEMA or PMLA, so that it will be easy for you to concentrate and focus on the new topics or non-learned topics tomorrow. Okay, so that is how we have to approach this particular paper. And we should yes, we have the material that we carry in the examination hall. In that material, in the next 1.5 days, if you have already not done, preferably use some post-its and mark whichever chapters in the chapter wise, you can mark it so that it will be easy for you to refer. Right, some important topics also in IBC. You since every chapter is of 80 to 100 pages, etc. So just one post-it for a chapter might not help. So certain specific every subheadings also, CIRP for voluntary liquidation, a separate one, for PPIRP, a separate one. That helps you. That saves time in the examination hall. That can be followed. And in the examination hall also, you just have the order in place. Which are the 4 case studies that you're answering, and which is a case study that you'll answer first. First, you have that clarity. You can spend 5 extra minutes for that. Nothing to worry about. But first, have that clarity. Once you have that clarity, you can proceed with that. That would be easy for you to approach. So ultimately, you have to believe. If you believe, you're halfway there, right? Believe you can, and you're halfway there. The only place where success comes before work is in the dictionary. So you have to work hard. Nothing comes, and the success will definitely not come without working hard. But you have to work hard. You have to put in that effort in a smart way. That is what defines the success, right? So you have to have that smart approach. Have a plan in place. If you have a plan in place, definitely it will happen. So plan what you want to do in the next 1.5 days. How we will have that schedule in place. It will happen. Okay, forget whatever has happened till now. Now, all the studying that you are doing will be worth in the end, definitely, right? So these are the discussions. There is nothing much that we can discuss in this paper, right? It's ultimately our application. So one thing that we have to keep in mind in the case studies based questions that we have to answer, we have to know how to connect, right? We have to know how to connect. That is the important thing. That is why I said we have to go through some of the case studies so you can get used to it. So we have to know how to connect. Since case studies are based on multiple provisions, we have to shift between the laws. We have to shift between the provisions. So for that, we have to be thorough with the concepts, and we should have some practice of solving the case studies. Yes, apart from that, it definitely will be a cakewalk. So nothing to worry with regard to economic laws. What we have to worry with regard to economic laws is how can we score more than 80. Okay, see, that should be a target. That should be a target. Definitely we can definitely it is possible. Okay, I'm not saying as an exaggeration. It is definitely possible. Whatever efforts you have put in for the 5 previous subjects, the last 1.5 days, put in the same efforts. Put in the same efforts, definitely it will happen. Okay, don't relax saying that it's a open book exam. Okay, that is what the same mindset you have, definitely it will work. Clear? Yes, any specific points? No? Right then, I'll we'll conclude. Yes, Kodaya, you have something to say?
No doubt, sir. No doubt.
Okay, no problem. Okay, fine. So I wish everyone all the very best. Definitely, everyone will score high in this particular subject. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.